The crystalline spire of the Cosmic Immigration Office glittered against the black void of neutral space, its towering form humming with the bureaucratic energy of 1,000 species. Ambassador Daniel Carter adjusted his tie as the anti-grav lift deposited him onto the reception platform, his polished shoes clicking against the translucent floor. Around him, aliens of every conceivable shape and form moved with purpose, some on multiple limbs, others floating, a few dissolving and reforming their molecular structures as they traveled. None gave the lone human more than a passing glance. Carter exhaled through his nose. 3 months of negotiations. 3 months of jumping through every hoop the Galactic Union could throw at Earth. Today, it would finally be over. The reception desk loomed ahead, manned by a Vorak clerk whose bioluminescent frills pulsed a slow, disinterested blue. Carter approached, forcing a smile. Ambassador Daniel Carter, Earth Federation, here for the final review of our application. The Vorak Triss, according to the floating nameplate, didn't look up from his holographic display. His frills flickered. Ah, the humans. The way he said it made Carter's jaw tighten. A chime sounded from the office beyond, and a shimmering four-armed figure emerged. Director Vexlora of the Zeperian High Council stood tall, her chitinous exoskeleton reflecting the overhead lights in iridescent waves. Her primary eyes locked onto Carter, while the secondary set remained fixed on the datapad in her lower left hand. "Ambassador," she said, her voice smooth and utterly devoid of warmth. "Come." Carter followed her into the adjudication chamber, a circular room with walls that displayed the sigils of 100 admitted species. Earth's proposed emblem, a blue marble wreathed in olive branches, was conspicuously absent. Vexlora took her seat behind a floating desk, her lower arms typing rapidly while the upper pair folded in front of her. The Union has reached its decision. Carter's pulse quickened, and a holographic stamp flickered to life above the desk. A crimson circle slashed through with jagged Zeperian script. Rejected. The air left Carter's lungs. What? Why? Vexlora didn't blink. Primitive, aggressive, unstable. The Galactic Union has standards, Ambassador. Your species fails to meet them. Carter's hands clenched. That's absurd. We have FTL. We've terraformed Mars. We've established peaceful colonies in 3 systems. Colonies you nearly went to war over when resources grew scarce. Vexlora interrupted. A recording flickered to life above the desk. Human ships bristling with weapons. Human diplomats shouting across negotiation tables. That was before the unification accords. Carter snapped. Triss, who had slithered in silently, let out a derisive chitter. You still fight amongst yourselves. Even on your own planet, pathetic. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber's observation gallery, where a handful of alien delegates had gathered. An Arcturian senator, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with amusement, leaned forward. Face it, human, you're barely past barbarism. Carter's nails dug into his palms. We've met every requirement. Every single one. Vexlora's mandibles twitched. On paper, perhaps. But the Union cannot ignore the volatility of your species. Your application is denied. This session is concluded. The holographic stamp pulsed once more. Final. Carter stood there, his mind racing. Behind him, the gallery erupted into quiet laughter. Then the doors hissed open, and Dr. Lisa Hayes stormed in, her tablet clutched in a white-knuckled grip. You've got to be kidding me. Vexlora's secondary eyes flicked toward her. This chamber is for authorized personnel only. I am authorized. Lisa spat. She thrust her tablet forward, displaying a live feed from the Sol system. You want to talk about volatility? Fine. Let's talk about what happens when you back humans into a corner. The feed showed the Mars shipyards, dozens of human vessels, retrofitted not for war, but for something far more dangerous. Innovation. Carter's lips curled into a slow, grim smile. The game wasn't over yet. The public gallery of the Union Hall buzzed with alien chatter, a kaleidoscope of bioluminescent patterns and chittering mandibles, reflecting the amusement of dozens of species. Ambassador Carter clenched his jaw as he took his seat beside Dr. Lisa Hayes, her fingers already flying across her datapad, recording every smug glance and condescending flicker of alien body language. "They're replaying our wars," Lisa muttered, her voice tight. Above the central dais, holographic projections flickered to life, grainy footage of human history at its worst. World War II bombers streaking across European skies. The mushroom cloud over Hiroshima, riots in burning cities, soldiers firing into crowds. The images played on a loop, curated for maximum humiliation. Senator Krell of Arcturus rose from his floating podium, his gelatinous body pulsing with amusement. His voice boomed through the chamber, translated by the universal comm system. "Exhibit a humanity's so-called civilization." A ripple of laughter spread through the gallery. "They still slaughter each other over patches of dirt and shiny rocks. And they want us to believe they're ready for the stars?" Lisa's stylus snapped in her grip. Carter placed a warning hand on her arm, but his own knuckles were white. "This is a farce," she hissed. "They're cherry-picking the worst moments of our history while ignoring everything else. Where is the footage of the Mars colonies? The peace accords, the—" "Quiet, Doctor," Carter murmured. "They want a reaction. Don't give it to them." Krell wasn't finished. With a flick of his tendril, the holograms shifted to show Earth's current political divisions, border disputes, resource wars, the fractured remains of the United Nations. Even now, they cannot unite their own species. The Galactic Union cannot risk importing such instability. A Vorak delegate in the front row trilled with laughter, his frills flaring bright pink. "They're like hatchlings fighting over crumbs." Lisa's breath came fast. They have no idea what they're provoking. Krell's bioluminescence flared triumphantly. "Therefore, I propose Earth be classified as a pre-contact quarantine zone, for their own protection, of course." The chamber erupted in applause. Carter's stomach turned. A quarantine classification meant no trade, no travel, no contact. Humanity locked in its own solar system like a zoo exhibit. Lisa shot to her feet before Carter could stop her. "You arrogant pricks," she snarled, her voice cutting through the noise. The gallery fell silent, shocked by the outburst. "You sit here judging us while your own histories are scrubbed clean. The Arcturian purges. The Vorak slave pits. Don't pretend you evolved past violence. You just got better at hiding it." Krell's glow dimmed to an angry red. "Sit down, human. Your emotional outburst only proves my point." Carter stood slowly, pulling Lisa back. "What my colleague means," he said, voice icy calm, "is that humanity has grown beyond its past. We've earned our place in this union. Deny us, and you'll regret it." Krell's laughter echoed through the chamber. "Oh, and what will you do? Throw rocks at our ships?" Lisa leaned forward, her smile razor thin. "No, we'll outthink you." The gallery erupted again, some in laughter, others in uneasy murmurs. Carter guided Lisa out of the chamber, ignoring the jeers. As the doors sealed behind them, she whirled on him. "We can't let this stand." "We won't," Carter said, pulling out his comm. "But we don't fight them here. We fight them where it counts." He typed a single command into the device, a coded message, routed through secure channels, straight to the Mars shipyards. "Initiate protocol Blackjack." Lisa's eyes gleamed. "They want to see humanity's worst. Fine, let's show them our best." Outside the hall, the stars burned cold and distant. But not for long. The Mars shipyards buzzed with activity, a sprawling network of docks and construction scaffolds clinging to the red planet's orbit like steel barnacles. Workers in pressurized suits darted between half-assembled hulls, welding torches flaring in the vacuum. The usual orderly hum of construction had been replaced by something sharper, something hungry. Captain Ryan Blake stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, his calloused hands gripping the railing. The cruiser floated in dry dock, her sleek lines interrupted by strange new protrusions along her flanks. Engineers swarmed over her like ants, rerouting power conduits and bolting on unmarked modules. "You seeing this, Captain?" Engineer Mikhail Petrov's voice crackled over the comm. The man was somewhere deep in the ship's guts, probably elbow deep in wiring. His grin was audible. They gave us a no after everything. FTL, the Europa colonies, the damn Dyson swarm prototypes. They still think we're backwater apes. Blake didn't answer right away. His eyes tracked a team hauling a massive cylindrical device toward the Defiance's forward bay. Gravitic torpedo, officially. It was a mining tool, meant to reshape asteroids. Unofficially, well, Petrov had a habit of repurposing things. Petrov, Blake finally said, his voice gravel. That thing stable yet? A burst of static. Then laughter. Stable? No fun. Oh hey, yes, we stripped the safeties, rerouted the dampeners. You sneeze near this beauty, and she'll fold space like origami. Down in the main hangar, Lisa Hayes was arguing with a group of scientists, her tablet flashing with equations. You can't just weaponize gravitational harmonics, she snapped. One of the engineers, a kid barely out of the academy, shrugged. Watch us. Blake keyed the ship-wide comb. All hands, listen up. The Union thinks we're too primitive to join their club. They've got blockades at the edge of our system, for our own good. A pause. The crew had stopped moving, tools hovering mid-motion. So we're going to give them a demonstration. Petrov whooped over the channel. Hell yeah, we'll show them primitive. The plan was simple, stupid, maybe, but simple. No weapons, no violence, just a statement. The Defiance would jump to the blockade line, fire a single modified probe, and make the Zephyrians rethink every life choice that led them to underestimate humanity. Lisa stormed onto the bridge, her cheeks flushed. You're insane. That torpedo could destabilize an entire moon. Blake didn't look away from the viewport. That is the idea. You're going to get us all killed. Petrov's voice cut in, sing-song. Aura will get us all famous. The bridge crew exchanged glances, nervous, excited. A young ensign, Ava Chen's replacement while she handled comms, swallowed hard. Sir, what if they shoot first? Blake finally turned, his smile thin. Then we'll show them what unstables really looks like. The final preparations took hours. Petrov and his team scrambled to calibrate the gravitic torpedo. Cursing in a mix of Russian and engineering jargon, Lisa hovered, alternating between furious protests and grudgingly helpful suggestions. If you insist on being suicidal, at least recalculate the field harmonics. By the time the Defiance undocked, the entire ship thrummed with tension. The crew moved with sharp precision, double-checking systems, running last-minute diagnostics. No one spoke much. There was only the quiet hum of engines, the occasional beep of a console. Petrov slumped into the co-pilot's chair, grease smeared across his forehead. Ready to make history, Captain. Blake gripped the controls. Not history, a point. The Defiance's engines flared, and Mars fell away behind them. Ahead, the blockade, the Zephyrians. And one very, very stupid idea that was about to rewrite galactic politics. Lisa exhaled sharply, gripping her seat. God help us all. Petrov grinned. Nah, let them need help. The ship leapt into warp. The Zephyrian blockade fleet glittered against the blackness of space, their sleek silver hulls forming an unbroken ring just beyond the orbit of Neptune. Admiral Zorath lounged in his command chair aboard the Eclipse, his forearms folded in satisfaction as he watched the human vessels hovering near the inner system. His mandibles twitched in amusement. Pathetic, he muttered to his first officer. They don't even have proper shielding. One volley from our plasma lances and their entire fleet would be scrap. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Ryan Blake stood with his arms crossed, watching the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships outnumbered them 3-1, their weapons primed, their formation flawless. Lieutenant Ava Chen glanced up from her console, her fingers dancing over the controls. They're hailing us, sir. Blake nodded. Put them through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing Admiral Zorath's smug, chitinous face, His compound eyes gleamed with barely concealed contempt. "Captain Blake," Zorath said, his voice dripping with condescension, "I must commend your bravery, or perhaps your foolishness, for venturing this far. But I'm afraid this is as far as you go. Turn your ships around. Return to your system. The Galactic Union has deemed your species unfit for interstellar travel." Blake didn't flinch. "We weren't asking for permission, Admiral." Zorath's mandibles twitched again, this time in irritation. "You humans," he sneered. "Always so defiant. So emotional, do you not understand? This blockade is for your own good. Your kind is volatile, unpredictable. You're barely past throwing rocks at each other." Ava Chen smirked, leaning back in her chair. "Oh, we've upgraded from rocks. You should see what we do with nukes." Zorath ignored her, focusing on Blake. "This is your final warning. Turn back, or we will force you back." Blake exhaled slowly, his gaze never leaving the screen. "Admiral, let me make something clear. That blockade of yours, it is not keeping us in, it is keeping you out." Zorath's antennae stiffened. "What?" Blake turned to Chen. "Lieutenant, open a fleet-wide channel." Chen tapped a command, and Blake's voice echoed across every human ship in the vicinity. "All vessels, this is Captain Blake. Execute Operation Spiteful Compliance." A chorus of acknowledgements crackled over the comms. On the Atlantica, Engineer Mikhail Petrov whooped with glee, his fingers flying over his console. "Oh, this is gonna be good," he muttered. The Defiance's engines flared to life, not retreating, but advancing. The human ships moved in perfect unison, drifting toward the blockade as if they hadn't heard the warning. Zorath's eyes widened. You dare." Blake's voice was ice. "We dare." The Zephyrian admiral snarled, slamming a clawed hand down on his console. "All ships, target the lead human vessel. Disable their engines." Plasma lances hummed to life across the blockade fleet, their barrels glowing with deadly energy. Ava Chen glanced at her readouts. "They're locking on, sir." Blake didn't blink. "Let them." The Eclipse fired first, a brilliant lance of blue plasma streaking toward the Defiance. At the last second, the human ship's thrusters flared, shifting its position just enough that the shot missed. Zorath's jaw dropped. "Impossible." Their maneuverability. Petrov's voice crackled over the comms, laughing. "You like that? That is nothing." The human ships weren't just dodging, they were dancing. Every shot the Zephyrians fired went wide, their targeting systems struggling to keep up with the erratic, unpredictable movements. Zorath's first officer stammered. "Admiral, their flight patterns. They're not following any known evasion protocols." Blake's voice cut through the chaos. "That is because we wrote new ones." The Defiance suddenly pivoted, its nose angling directly toward the Eclipse. Zorath's blood ran cold. "All ships, brace for." But the human vessel didn't fire. Instead, a small probe detached from its hull, streaking toward the Eclipse at impossible speed. Zorath's claws scrambled over his console. "Intercept it. Shoot it down." The Zephyrian point. Defense guns roared to life, but the probe weaved through the barrage untouched. It slammed into the Eclipse's hull with a dull thunk. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Eclipse lurched violently, its artificial gravity field flickering. Alarms blared across the bridge as the ship's systems went haywire. Zorath staggered, clutching at his chair. What is this?" Petrov's voice came through the comms, gleeful. "Oh, just a little gift." The Eclipse's engines flared, not under Zephyrian control, but human override. The massive battleship spun in place, its thrusters firing in perfect controlled bursts, sending it into a graceful, looping arc. Zorath's crew screamed as their ship danced, a perfect figure, 8 against the stars. Blake's voice was calm. "You called us primitive, Admiral. So tell me, how primitive does this feel?" The entire blockade fleet watched in stunned silence as the Eclipse, pride of the Zephyrian Navy, pirouetted through space like a child's toy, Zorath's mandibles trembled. You hacked my ship? Ava Chen grinned. Oh, we're just getting started. The bridge of the Defiance hummed with restrained energy. Captain Ryan Blake stood motionless at the center, arms crossed, watching the tactical display. The Zeperian blockade fleet formed a glittering ring around Sol's edge, their sleek warships arranged in perfect formation. The Eclipse, Admiral Zorath's flagship, loomed largest among them, its polished hull reflecting the distant sun like a blade held to humanity's throat. Lieutenant Ava Chen's fingers danced across her console. Incoming hail from the Eclipse, she announced, her voice dry. Shall I put the arrogant bastard on screen? Blake didn't smile. Do it. The main viewer flickered to life, revealing Admiral Zorath's angular face, his chitinous plates shifting with barely concealed amusement. Captain Blake, he said, mandibles clicking in what passed for a smirk among his species. I see you've brought your little ship to the edge of civilized space. A shame you won't be going any further. Blake didn't blink. We weren't asking permission. Zorath's antennae twitched. You humans, he sighed, as if explaining to a child. The Union has decreed your species unfit for interstellar travel. Turn back. You are not welcome beyond your system. Chen snorted. Oh, we're not leaving, she said, tapping a command into her console. We're expanding. A warning chime sounded on the Eclipse's bridge. Zorath's compound eyes flicked to a secondary screen. What? Petrov's voice crackled over the comm, wild with glee, fire in the hole. The Defiance's forward launcher ejected a single probe, no larger than a cargo crate, streaking toward the Eclipse. It impacted the flagship's hull with a dull clang, magnetically latching on. Zorath barked orders. Scanners. What is that? His science officer's voice trembled. Unknown energy signature. It's interfacing with our gravitic stabilizers. Blake allowed himself a small, cold smile. Admiral, you called us primitive. He leaned forward. Watch. The probe pulsed once. Then the Eclipse lurched violently, its artificial gravity field twisting like a living thing. The massive ship spun sideways, engines flaring uselessly as its trajectory bent to an unseen force. On the Defiance's bridge, Petrov whooped, Gotcha, you overgrown beetle. His fingers flew across his own console, inputting commands with manic precision. Let's see how you like this. The Eclipse jerked again, then began moving in a perfect looping figure, its thrusters firing helplessly against the override. Zorath's voice was a strangled screech. What have you done? Blake folded his arms. We're demonstrating control, Admiral. That probe just hacked your entire gravitic drive. Right now, your ship dances to our tune. Panicked shouts echoed from the Eclipse's comm feed. Crew members tumbled across decks as the ship's orientation shifted unpredictably. Zorath clung to his command chair, his exoskeleton darkening with rage and fear. You can't do this, he sputtered. This is an act of war. Chen rolled her eyes. Oh please, we didn't fire a single weapon. Just repurposed yours. Petrov's laughter crackled over the open channel. And we're just getting started. The Defiance's probe pulsed again. The Eclipse's engines flared, not to escape, but to comply. The massive ship pirouetted gracefully, its hull groaning under stresses it was never designed to handle. Across the blockade fleet, other Zeperian ships hesitated. Their weapons remained powered down, not out of mercy, but sheer disbelief. No species had ever hacked a warship mid-combat. Blake watched the Eclipse's helpless dance, his expression unreadable. You underestimated us, Admiral, called us unstable, aggressive. He tilted his head, but you never stopped to ask what we could do with that aggression. Zorath's mandibles clicked uselessly. Release my ship, not yet. Blake nodded to Petrov. Show them the rest. The engineer grinned. With pleasure. A second probe launched from the Defiance, streaking past the blockade toward a nearby moon. A barren rock pockmarked with craters. The probe embedded itself in the lunar surface. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the moon shuddered, cracks spider-webbed across its surface, fissures glowing with unnatural energy. The rock fractured, not into rubble, but into geometric segments, splitting apart with impossible precision. And then it reformed. The Zephyrians stared in horror as the moon's shattered pieces realigned, folding back together like a puzzle solving itself. But not as it had been. Now it was a perfect cube. Silence. Even Petrov stopped laughing. The blockade fleet's comm channels were dead. No taunts, no threats, just stunned, suffocating shock. Chen broke the silence first. "So," she said mildly, "still think we're primitive." Zorath's voice, when it finally came, was a whisper. "You terraformed a moon in seconds." Blake leaned back. "No," he corrected, "we redefined it." The eclipse still hung motionless, trapped in the grip of human ingenuity. The cube moon gleamed in the starlight, an undeniable testament. Somewhere, in the depths of the Galactic Union's halls, bureaucrats were beginning to realize their mistake. And for the first time in history, they were afraid. The live feeds flickered to life across every screen in the Galactic Union. From the crystalline spires of Cententrum to the methane baths of the Vorak homeworld, every species stopped what they were doing to watch. The image showed the Zephyrian flagship Eclipse spinning in perfect controlled loops, a warship reduced to a puppet dancing on human strings. Vexalora's chitinous shell quivered as she watched from the immigration office's main chamber. Her 4 hands clutched the edge of her desk, the holographic rejection stamp for Earth's application still hovering uselessly in the air. This is impossible," she whispered. Nearby, Senator Krell's bioluminescent glow dimmed to a sickly pulse. His frills, usually flared in smug superiority, now lay flat against his neck. They can't just override a Zephyrian dreadnought systems like that. On screen, Admiral Zorath's panicked voice crackled through the comms. "What have you done? Release control at once." Captain Blake's face appeared on the feed, his expression calm as a frozen lake. "You wanted proof we weren't primitive, Admiral. Consider this your evaluation." A second probe launched from the Defiance, streaking toward a nearby moon. The Union Council's collective breath hitched as the projectile embedded itself in the lunar surface. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the moon moved, cracks spider-webbed across its surface, jagged lines of glowing energy pulsing through the rock. Chunks the size of cities broke free, only to halt mid-flight, suspended by invisible forces. The fragments realigned, grinding together with impossible precision, edges smoothing as if molded by a god's hand. In 37 seconds, the moon was no longer a moon. It was a perfect cube. Silence, absolute. Crushing silence filled the Galactic Union's chambers. Even the ever-present hum of climate regulators seemed to pause in disbelief. Dr. Lisa Hayes, watching from the public gallery, allowed herself a small, satisfied smirk. She tapped her datapad, pulling up the schematics Petrov had sent her hours earlier. "Gravitic restructuring matrix," she murmured. "We were going to use it for asteroid mining." Krell's voice, when it finally came, was barely audible. "You terraformed a celestial body in seconds." On the Defiance's bridge, Petrov's laughter crackled over the open comms. "Oh, that was just the warm-up act." His fingers danced across his console. "Watch this." The cubic moon pulsed once, then began to rotate. Not along its axis, but in a way that defied natural physics. It tumbled end over end, gravity bending unnaturally around it before suddenly freezing in place. Then, with terrifying precision, it split, each face peeling away to reveal a glowing core of restructured matter. A holographic projection flared to life above it, the Earth's flag rippling in the non-existent solar wind. Vexlora's knees buckled. She caught herself on her desk, her chitin clicking in distress. They branded it. Across the galaxy, in 100 different languages. The same realization dawned. Humanity hadn't just demonstrated their technology. They'd claimed that Moon, not with weapons, not with warships, with engineering. On the Eclipse, Zorath's crew scrambled at their stations. "Admiral, our systems are..." "They're laughing at us." The comms officer's screen flickered. Instead of tactical readouts, it now displayed a single line of text in perfect galactic standard. "You banned us from the playground, so we built our own." Krell's frills twitched. His glow flickered like a dying ember. "This changes things." Lisa Hayes finally stood, her datapad clutched tight. "Damn right it does." The feeds cut to the Defiance's bridge one last time. Blake leaned forward, his gaze piercing through the screen like a plasma round. "Union Council, you have 1 hour to rescind Earth's rejection. After that..." He nodded to the cubic moon. "We start on Jupiter." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, a single sound echoed through the chamber. The sharp crack of Vex Laura's stylus snapping in her trembling hands. The Union Council chamber had never been so quiet. The usual hum of 100 different species murmuring in their native tongues was gone. Even the ever-present clicking of Zephyrian mandibles had ceased. Every eye and eye stalk and sensory orb was fixed on the central hollow display, where the Defiance's stunt played on loop. The Eclipse spun helplessly in its artificial gravity dance. The moon cracked and reformed into a perfect cube. Then it all reset and played again. Ambassador Daniel Carter leaned back in his seat, fingers steepled. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just watched the faces around him, Vex Laura's chitinous shell quivering, Krell's bioluminescence flickering like a faulty lamp, Triss frills pressed flat against her skull in shock. Director Vex Laura cleared her throat. The sound echoed in the silence. "The Union has reconsidered." A ripple went through the chamber. Carter let it settle before speaking. "Good." He kept his voice calm, measured. "Now, let's talk about our terms." Senator Krell's glow flared in indignation. "You can't possibly expect..." Carter cut him off. "No, we don't expect anything. We demonstrate." He tapped a control on his wrist. The hollow display shifted, zooming out to show the Sol system, and the hundreds of human ships now positioned at key points. Not warships, not yet, but the implication was clear. "You banned us," Carter continued. "Called us primitive, unstable, too violent for your precious Union. And yet," he gestured to the frozen image of the cubic moon, "you've never seen violence like what we could do if we wanted to." Admiral Zorath's voice crackled over the chamber's comms, still aboard the Eclipse. "This is an outrage. You hijacked my ship." Captain Blake's face appeared on the hollow display beside him, utterly unimpressed. "Correction. We borrowed it, and we gave it back in one piece. Be grateful." A murmur ran through the crowd. Blake's tone carried the unspoken threat. "Next time, we might not be so polite." Dr. Lisa Hayes stood, her datapad clutched in white-knuckled hands. "Let's be clear. Humanity isn't asking for membership anymore. We're defining it." She tapped her screen, and a new set of terms flickered into existence above the council floor. Full recognition of human colonies, equal voting rights. And, she smirked, an official apology for the pre-contact quarantine suggestion. Krell's glow dimmed further. "You can't dictate terms to the Galactic Union." "Watch us," Carter said for a long moment. No one spoke. Then, from the back of the chamber, a low, rhythmic sound began. It took Carter a second to recognize it. Applause. A lone Vorak delegate, her frills flared in approval, was clapping her appendages together. Then another joined, and another. Vex Laura's mandibles twitched. She looked at Carter, then at the terms still hovering in the air. Finally, she reached for the approval seal, the same one that had stamped Earth's application rejected just hours before. The Zephyrian delegation accepts. The chamber erupted, some in protest, some in reluctant awe. Carter didn't react. He just leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. One more thing. The noise died. Next time you think about underestimating humanity, he glanced at the eclipse, still frozen mid-spin on the display. Remember today. And for the first time in galactic history, the bureaucrats were afraid of the paperwork.